The Four Leaf Clover podcast is sponsored by Planet Celtic.
How you doing? It's Wednesday. It's the Four Leaf Clover podcast, joined by our Paddy and Kaiser. How you doing, Paddy? How was Cork?
Yep, good trip, Andy. Myself and my friend Mark shared the driving in the motorhome. Just did a day trip, so we left here 7:30 on Tuesday morning, and we got back from Cork about 2:30, 20 to 3 this morning. So good wee trip, lovely weather, nice wee stadium. It's actually a GAA stadium. Cork don't play there. It's mostly used for hurling. But nice compact wee stadium, and there was a fair crowd for a friendly. It was a good turnout for a friendly. It was very well received, and so a really good day out. We just really enjoyed the trip.
No, did you get a sunbed on the way down, or is that just natural?
That happened about halfway through the second half, Andy. The sun came right round the far side of the stadium and started beaming in on us, because we'd just been saying that the guys that were at the Blackrock Terrace, that was the goal that the winning goal went in behind there. The sun had just been beaming on them the whole game, but then it just sort of shifted about 10, 15 minutes into the second half, and it was just beaming down on us the rest of the way. It was absolutely brutal. So that's where that's come from.
You're looking radiant, mate. Kaiser, yourself, did you watch a match?
Yes, I did, my man. Actually, watched it on the old Fire Sticko. Flawless. Absolutely outstanding, mate. A lot to speak about the game. Gave us a lot of food for thought. I'm sure we'll brush onto that. And as per usual, everybody in the comments, everybody out there, look, pods are nothing without viewers and listeners. So make sure you're smashing like, hitting subscribe. And of course, after the live's finished, feel free to join in the comments. We always answer back the comments. And every last one of you as well. It's not just like me who gets in there. Andy's in there, Paddy's in there, Jerry, Steve, all is. We're all in there. So feel free, legends. Thank you for being here.
You were going to say Stevie there, weren't you? And then realised
I was going to say Stevie, and I was like, who the fuck is Stevie?
Let's have a quick look at the starting lineup for the game in Cork. Not really. I wouldn't be really surprised with any kind of players there. There's a few first teamers in there, but obviously a lot of the ones that are on the fringes in there as well. Paddy, what's your overall thoughts of the starting lineup?
It was good to see. It was good to see a few players down. Even though some of the guys didn't play, Anthony Ralston was there, Adam Ida was there, Kieran Tierney was there. They were all floating about, but they weren't part of the match day squad. But it was nice to see the guys all there. It was good to see Sinisalo back in goal again. I like the wee boy Colby Donovan. I think he's a cracking wee player. I was glad to see him in again. And then they're obviously going to try. Dean Murray. They're going to give him a bit of a run. A real boost for everybody in the stadium when we discovered that Inamura was playing. Everybody around us was just buzzing when they discovered he was playing. And then he's gone for the same midfield tree. So a very similar team to the one that lined up against Queen's Park at Leicester Hamden on Friday night, Andy. So, even though it was a long journey down, it was just nice to see the hoops again. Just nice to see the boys back out on the pitch again. And you can just see the step up in fitness even from last Friday night. You can see the way that the extra few days training have helped them. So no real surprises, Andy. I said that the international guys only came back. They're only back through the door. And that's we knew that they wouldn't be risked at this stage. It's just not worth taking a risk with them. So and it's good for Brendan to get a chance to see some of these young lads. There are a lot of these young lads that will be hoping to maybe force their way into the squad regularly this season. Maybe not regular starters, but they'll certainly be looking to maybe get involved in the matchday squad a lot more regularly. So it was nice to see them, and we were just buzzing when we knew that Inamura was playing, and we were buzzing when we saw Callum Osman's name on the substitutes list as well. Everybody was very keen to get a look at him as well. So no, the team was just pretty much as we expected it would be. I was just a bit disappointed that Liam Scales and Adam Ida couldn't maybe play, because obviously the fans down there would love to have seen the Irish guys, but it is what it is. We're in the middle of pre-season preparations, and there's no room for sentimentality when they're trying to get the players fit.
Yeah. guys are just looking at the midfield, the starting midfield there. You've got a kind of strong midfield, I would say, you know, with McCowan, the captain, McGregor, and Engels in there as well. So, aye, a pretty kind of solid middle of the park, but obviously sprinkled with some future talent, hopefully. Were you surprised with any kind of inclusion in with any players in the team there at the starting lineup?
No, if you fling it back on his for me, Andy, mate, waffle again and call some separate names. No, look, young Donovan in his tricoloured dream coat, fantastic. Murray impressed as well. Inamura, for me, I was waiting to see him. I was waiting to see how he would perform. Absolutely outstanding. Absolutely outstanding. McGregor, Engels. Seen lots of people say that Engels was non-existent in the match. Lots of key touches. Real cut edge, real cut them apart. Especially when they dropped back and started sitting deep. McCowan, what a strike. Utterly flawless strike. Summers impressed. Forrest rolled back the ears, mate. Forrest with some of his touches and stuff. I was like, look at the quality of this, man. I was utterly astounded by him. And yeah, I enjoyed the lineup. I thought it was a good mix of youth and experience, first team regulars and youngsters coming through. So yeah, I was very keen to watch the start of the match and the first half especially, because I know the second half tends to be all change and more younger players got on. But yeah, mate, I was well impressed with how we played. We're controlling the game, passing the ball around. Big trusty, yeah, big trusty. When CCV's not on, he needs to pick somebody else to pass to, and it just happened to be Inamura. I'm glad he did. It shows how good an outlet he is. And for everyone saying like Inamura's a left centre back and he won't be playing left back for Celtic, you won't even see him in a Celtic shirt. He's brought in and then loaned straight out. Well, I seen him in a Celtic shirt, bro, and he was very, very impressive.
Yep. Yeah, let's just touch on that. You just mentioned Trusty there, and I think on a couple of occasions he actually bailed Trusty out. Trusty was found wanting a wee bit, and he rescued him a wee bit. I was listen. It's one half of a game, all right. So we can't judge a player in one half of a game, even if he's good, because if he had an absolute howler, you'd be saying it's one half of a game. You can't judge him, so you need to put it in context here. But
Andy, I think if he had a stinker, everybody would have leapt on that and been like 250 grand for Japan. The closest Brendan Rodgers has been to Japan is Wagamama's down the fort. He's got no idea who's coming in here. This is a club signing. It's not a Brendan signing. I can hear it. I can hear it echo in my mind. People would have tore the bones off of that. I've seen other podcasters saying he was useless in the air. He's not a centre back. He's not physically built. Everything I've seen about Inamura ticked every box for me. He was winning the balls in the air. He was bailing Trusty out. He was accepting possession. He was hitting the byline. He was inverting. He was playing a Greg Taylor role. Things that I've never seen him do, or he wasn't Ron Seal win it, mate. Exactly what advertised in the tin. Usually you expect from Celtic. You buy a player in to play a position, and that's where he's going to play. If Rio Hitati coming in taught us anything, is sometimes left backs from Japan end up left midfielders, and sometimes left centre backs end up left backs. I was absolutely outstanding with him. And as you says, mate, one half of football, so I'm not exactly remortgaging the home and saying, yep, he's the man, he's the answer to all our problems. But at the same time, I do take it with the same crushing reality of if he failed to perform, everybody would have been, I told you so. There it is there, again, engineered decline. Well, is it really engineered decline, or is that smart scouting? It looks a lot more like smart scouting than value for money right now.
Yeah.
So,
Paddy, I think it's quite clear that this isn't Brendan Rodgers signing. It's been somebody that's been offered to him, and he says, well, bring him in, we'll have a look at him. Because after the match, the comments were quite clear that he was really surprised at how good he actually played that first half.
Yeah.
You know, you see this, and I'll say it again, obviously, it's only one half of a game, but do you see a kind of a real opportunity for this guy to come in and actually kind of make his mark in the team rather than getting fired straight back out the door again.
You have to look at the overall package, Andy. Now, you also, as you say, it's one half of football, and you also have to look at the standard of opposition as well. Cork weren't weren't playing Barcelona or AC Milan or anybody like that. It was Cork City in a friendly pre-season game. But listen, you can't take away from the guy. Very, very quickly, everybody who was watching, I was actually sitting right beside Rory Hamilton, the commentator. That's where our seats were. We were sitting right. There was just two spare seats, and then Rory Hamilton and the guy on Premier Sports. So that's where we were sitting, right up where they were. And everybody around us was just like, here, this guy can play. There's something about this guy. With it, we were kind of expecting to see this. The guy that Brendan was sort of thinking, this guy will be nowhere near the first team and he'll be loaned out. But, very, very quickly, he settled down very, very quickly. Very, very neat and tidy on the ball. Good, crisp passer. Able to take the ball under pressure. He was right out on the touchline a few times. There was a couple of aerial battles there where one or two that he won, one that he lost, but he was getting stuck in. He really was getting stuck in. There's not much of him, Andy. That's the thing. That's the only thing that I would, if you're looking at going into the winter in Scotland and the heavy pitches and the, some of the hammer throwers that we have to play against some of the defenders. I think they will have to look at, doing a bit of work on his physique. He'll have to build himself up a bit, but that will come, and that comes with a lot of players that come from, not necessarily Japan. That comes from players who come in maybe from Spain or Belgium or Germany or somewhere. Sometimes they're not physically up to that challenge, and I think they will have to work on that. But I definitely saw a lot more than I was expecting. Because Brendan's comments just sort of put me off a bit, to be honest, when I was delighted to see it. And that's when you sort of realize there must be some kind of maybe, I'm not saying a disconnect between the club, but, there was a big fanfare about he's taking Nakamura's jersey. He wants to be the best Japanese player ever to play for Celtic. And then 24 hours later, Brendan's saying, but he's not going to be with the first team. So there was that that sort of really spoiled it, and it took the edge off it for me. But, I know we don't want to get carried away, but the guy looked really, really good, really neat and tidy. I don't know if you've noticed on the TV, but he was down in the overlap a couple of times. He put a couple of absolutely mouth-watering balls across the goal. Lovely left foot on him, just a real ball zipped in across. We were, the guys that were with me, we were just saying, if you had a Kyogo making that front post run there, it would have been meat and drink to him. Johnny Kenny just off the pace.
Exactly. And Kyogo, the wee guy that isn't here anymore.
Yeah, the balls across. He fizzed a couple of really cracking balls right across, and he has that ability to see a pass. And what I liked about him was he didn't panic. He didn't get flustered about anything. He always turned and went back. There was always a pass on inside to Callum, or there's a pass back to Trusty. He has the ability to keep the ball and keep the ball moving. And if there's space in front of him, he was linking up well with Ben Summers down the left. He was linking up with Callum coming in. He linked up a few times with Johnny Kenny making lovely runs, and that only Johnny didn't maybe move as quickly. But it's very promising, Andy. He looks very, very promising, I have to say. As I say, you need to temper that with, but bear in mind it was the opposition. It was Cork City we were playing. But he definitely looked, and that's all that the guy can do. He can't do any more than that. If you're talking about, the first half performance, for me, he would probably have been the outstanding Celtic player in the first half. There's absolutely no question about that. So I'm not sure what the plan is for him, Andy. I don't know. I suppose Brendan will take a look at him and see. As you say, it looks to me as though he's been brought in, by the club, and this is a guy you could look at development or whatever. So if Brendan sees, anything in him there, he may decide to keep him with the first team. He looked very, very good for me. I was really, really delighted to see him, and that was the same for everybody. We were all pleasantly surprised because we were kind of expecting to see this wee waif and stray guy, because Brendan had kind of sort of poured cold water on it, but he was very, very good, Andy. Really, really impressed with him, and ran his heart out and worked so hard for the team. And as I say, I think there was only one stray pass that he put in the whole game. He really did keep the ball well, and he has that ability to pass the ball inside and see a through ball there. You know what I mean? So he looked really, really good. I just don't want to get too carried away, but I was very impressed with him.
Aye, Kaiser, just keeping on Inamura, the new. Obviously, when he was brought in, and Brendan did come out with these comments saying that, you know, he's not going to be a first team player. He's probably going to give it. Is that? Would you see that as being a kind of two fingers up to the Celtic board or the recruitment team that Faye Brendan, that they've brought in a player that he doesn't necessarily want, and he's automatically came to a conclusion without actually, it's quite obvious he's not actually spent time to look at the guy on so whatever, or read any real information on him. He's just, to me, he's just kind of looked at the name and went, what, 300 grand? He's played for a team that's been relegated or whatever, and I don't really fancy this guy without actually looking at him, and obviously he's been surprised. But do you see that? Can you see Brendan, and I think Brendan's used that as a twos up to the board? Like, now that's the first comments he came out with. It was a kind of a wee backhander for him, that a wee warning that this isn't the players I'm looking to get in. You're still bringing these players in, and then obviously he's totally surprised. With that, because Brendan's really good at working that, and he's good at putting wee things out here that kind of suit whatever he wants to get out there without saying it, or wee things like that. But all I can say is, like anyways, we've only seen him on YouTube, and I was really impressed with the guy. So I was really surprised when Brendan did come out with the comments saying that he wasn't going to be a first team player, and I'm like, this is really a strange kind of signing to be made. What's your thoughts on kind of Brendan's position with this player coming in?
I think Andy, mate, the scouting team that have brought him in, obviously, right? Brendan's looked at that, and he's looked at your likes of Lager, Bielka, and Narotsky, and he's been like, these guys have come in, touted as being the next big thing, and they're lacking key elements. I don't know what key elements are lacking, right? For me, it looks like both of them are lacking pace. And he's looked at Inamura and he's right, you're lacking physicality. I remember him looking at Trusty and mouthing the words weak as push, and I think he's looked at Inamura and he's thought to himself, nah, no way. And he's thought, right, maybe developmental in the future. He's a development signing. That was a key word that he used as well. And as he says, mate, Brendan is fantastic at caveating pieces of information and throwing breadcrumbs down like Hansel and Gretel, journeying through the forest. He's kind of letting the fans know that this one's not on me. But for me, I was deeply impressed with Inamura. I watched the clips of him online. I watched him win possession, turn the ball around and flip the play. The key feature that I seen from him online was that range of passing and these cross-field diagonal balls. We didn't see much of that from him. Seen him inverting, seen him moving into midfield, linking up very well with Summers, Cal McGregor. It was like he's always been there. And for me, I think he would have opened Brendan's eyes and made Brendan think and go, maybe I shouldn't judge a book by its cover. Maybe that's exactly what Brendan did. He's looked at the price. He's looked at where he's came from. He's looked at his appearances. He's looked at his age. He's looked at his build and thought, left centre back, no danger. But at all the rest is everybody else in the community who looked at him thought, as a backup left back in there behind a world-class left back, learning from Kieran Tierney and also from a manager of the ability to man-manage like Brendan Rodgers. And not to mention Maeda, Hatate. There is nothing lost in the sauce there. Whatever Brendan's going to say, if he's going to say, like, pick your head out your arse, I'm pretty sure Daisen Maeda's going to say that in Japanese. He's going to know exactly what he's being told. For me, mate, I thought he was fantastic. He displayed a wide range of ability. His ability to receive the ball, his link-up ability, considering his limited grasp of English. I heard one of the commentators says he knows all the swear words, that's for sure. They're universal. So the crosses that Paddy mentioned as well, fizzing the ball across the area, and I was just willing Johnny Kenny to stick a toe on the end of that and just lob it over. And yeah, mate, I was deeply impressed by him. And like everyone's saying, right, the level of opposition factors in, and also the fact that he's just finished his J-League season. He's not really had a shutdown, so he's fully active, fully on fire, firing on all cylinders. That features in as well. Some of the players he's playing against are in pre-season. Some of the players in his squad are It's still in pre-season. Some are B-team players. But for me, I thought he was fantastic. I thought he would really have opened Brendan's eyes, and Brendan would have nodded and looked and went, well, maybe we don't need to go squandering money on a backup left back. Maybe we don't need to go out there and spend any more cash. Maybe 250 grand for Japan is just the man we need. And like everyone's going to say, like, you need to temper that. You need to temper that, what you've been looking at, and temper it with over the course of a season. Can you do it in Dingwall on a dreary night? I don't know. We've not got to see it yet. But I think for people saying about the level of Cork, pretty much SPFL level is exactly what we're going to see there. They were robust. They sat back. They went deep after they scored. And we still managed to like cut them up and cut apart. And yeah, I was impressed, mate. There's no other way to frame it other than saying I was impressed with his performance. It was very surprising because I did expect to see a developmental player who we were going to be looking at, right, what's the best loan move for him? What country? What squad? What team? How many appearances? How are we going to develop him? And to see him in there, I was like, he doesn't need to go anywhere. I'll just keep him right where he is right now. Just develop him right here with a world-class left back in front of him and an elite level manager who is fantastic at developing players. So he's in the exact right place, in my opinion.
Aye. I think what he's got to get used to is playing for a team that usually wins every single game. You know, he's came for a team that's really struggling, so it's not as if he's been sitting about all season doing nothing. He's been kept very busy. Obviously, in the defence of a team that's very poor, you could look at that as a negative as well, but maybe he's a shining light for that negative for that team. So I think, you know, he's, if he does manage to sustain a place in a squad, first team squad, in the upcoming games, Brendan's going to have a better look at him. Then he'll need to adjust to being a team that is a winning team. You know, I suppose it's not that hard to adjust to winning. It's a very easy habit to get used to, and you know, as long as he knows what's required at Celtic, then I think obviously you talked about learning off of KT and the manager and various other players. And the good thing for him is we've got a Japanese contingent already at the club, so it helps him settling in, because Brendan mentioned that as well. It might take him a while to settle. That certainly helps the situation. So that's something to look to as well. Just still touching on the Cork game, just obviously a big changes in the second half. The whole team really, when you think about it. Doing comes in, young Mitchell Frame, we're talking about the left back. You know, this is a boy that came in and pressed, and then he get an injury, I'm sure, and then he was just out the picture altogether. Welsh back phone, I think he's going to end up coming back to Midtjylland, as far as I'm aware. Robertson, McPherson, McArdle, another good player. Yuri, another good performance. Wee Turley's had his chances in the first team as well. Montgomery, who was at loan, he's back at Celtic. And we got a first look at Osmond. I've got to be honest with you, right? Yesterday, I started really early. It was like 12:30 at night I started. So by the time the game started, I was absolutely shattered. And I fell asleep and missed the second half. So I'm not going to lie and say that I watched it, because I didn't. So I'm relying on you two guys to just have a quick chat about the second half, Paddy.
Well, the things that I took away, Andy, from the second half, obviously you have to bear in mind, and I said that to Mark, my mate beside me, I said, you know, this is what happens with these preseason games. You in the first half, you saw a right ding-dong cracking game of football. It really was a good one. Cork were more than holding their own and giving as good as they got. And I said that to Mark at halftime. I said, you know, that's the thing that, you know, they'll be making. There are probably 25 substitutions in the second half, and you just lose the whole flow of the game. The game just disappears. It's not recognizable from the game you watched in the first half. But there were a few takeaways for me. You know, as I say, the one that was sort of baffled us was young McArdle came on, and I thought he was doing really well. He looked really sharp and he looked nippy, and he was taking men on. But then they took him off again. They took him off very, very quickly. So I don't know, Andy, whether he got a wee knock or whether Brendan wasn't pleased with his attitude or something. But he wasn't on the pitch for very long. Maybe somebody who watched it on TV can tell me. But we just saw that he had gone off again, and they actually brought When they brought off Stephen Welsh injured, they brought Colby Donovan on again. They would obviously have had to have got permission from the referee to bring another player on who had already been taken off. So that was a funny one for me. So I don't know what's happened to the young lad. He looked okay. But the other young lad that was playing down the side along with McCardle, is it Hammond you call him? Is that what you call that young lad? He really impressed me, maybe more so than McCardle. He seems to have that ability to drop his shoulder and come inside, and he has a burst of pace when he gets in there. He's very like Sean McCardle, a wee sort of fair-haired, blondy-haired guy too. Very short in stature, but really quick, really, really impressive wee player. And then the other one for me was Stephen Welsh. And guys, I don't like criticising Celtic players, but this guy, I've said it before and I'll say it again, he's never a Celtic player in a million years. You know what I mean? And they're obviously, there has to be something going on there. Brendan's he let Mike Nawrocki, who we paid big money for, go. We paid big money for Gustav Lagerbielke and let them go. And we hold on to Stephen Welsh. And then you see again, as Jerry will tell you exactly what Jerry's been saying about him all along. The guy just can't play 2 games one after the other without getting injured. He's a liability, and I just can't understand it. I know that he's the Scottish player and they have to have so many, homegrown players in the European squads and stuff like that. But that to me, it doesn't make sense. Why? Well, then what are you shelling out 5 million on players from Germany and 5 million from players from Sweden for if you're going to have to keep Stephen Welsh in the squad? That doesn't make sense to me in any way, shape, or form. So that was that. That was my takeaways. The game did sort of peter out. We didn't defend great. We were all over the place, to be honest. Ross Doohan looked a bit shaky. He sort of got barged by a couple of his own players one time. And then the goal that Cork scored wasn't against the run of play. The goal was coming. Cork were building up a head of steam, and we were sort of sluggish, and that's what we said. They had just made an announcement that if the game finishes a draw, it will go straight to penalties. And then, as I say, Celtic come up with a winner. But the last one sort of was Callum Osmond, so we were delighted to see him coming on, and it was tough to sort of judge him, Andy, because at the end of the day, as I said to my mate, he's playing with the second string. If we're hoping that Callum Osmond's going to come in and do a job for us, he's going to be playing with Callum McGregor. He's going to be playing with Maida. He's going to be playing with Adam Ida. He's going to be playing with Engels. He spent the whole second half playing with the B team. So it was hard to judge him. What I've seen of him, what I saw of him, he looks sharp. He looks quick. He has an eye for a pass. He can put the ball out to the wide and get himself into the box. And it was actually him who headed the ball back across the goals for Colby Donovan to score the winner. He did very well. He knocked the ball back across the goal, and Donovan finished it well. So that was my sort of takeaways from the second half, Andy.
Kaiser, just touching on Osmond. What was your thoughts on the second half, and obviously him coming on first performance for Celtic? And another thing, we're talking about the Japanese boy coming in and possibly not getting a first team start. A guy that's came after playing first team football. And then this young Osmond's come in and not actually played any first team football at all for Fulham. And he's spoken about getting straight into the Celtic first team squad, and looking to cement his place in there. What was your thoughts, Osmond, and particularly the second half overall?
Yeah, mate, I thought the second half was a bit tedious, of course, when Cork managed to equalise. They instantly went into that low block, and it was every player behind the ball. So, how much space does that leave for a player like Osmond, who looks very pacey? He ran the lines very well. Excellent first touch. He has all the attributes of a great player. But how much can he display when the team's camped in at that stage? For me, I thought he did very well, mate. I thought he looks like a player. Certainly, his ability backs his confidence that he's displayed and he spoke about. He sees himself getting right into Celtic's first team. Maybe in Europe, when he's coming on late, somewhat Tony Watt-esque, when he's coming on late and hitting teams with pace. Yeah, definitely. Ability, as I said before, when I first took a look at him and took a look at clips of him, very Gary Hooper-esque. Young Ur, is it Ur? Is that how you see his name? Yeah, he was fantastic for me, bro. I was like, the vision, the passing ability, he was the shining light in the second half. Everything about what he was doing. And young Donovan, making Celtic history already from substitute coming back on the pitch. I don't think that's ever happened before. to scoring the winning goal. Young Donovan, his tri-coloured dream coat, absolutely loving it. I was like, he's writing history already. Perhaps the answers are there. The answers are at the club. And Paddy picks up on so many fantastic points as well. So many players there, especially younger players, came in and really impressed. How much, I don't think the quality of the opposition really comes into it. The fact that they dropped back and were very deep lying, and that 2 lines of 4 and leaving like a striker up top, and how deep they dropped. What is Osman going to do there? Apart from like show what quality he can in a congested box. I think there was a couple of chances he snapped at, and I remember him firing one, makes the space, takes the ball down with a fantastic touch, and then fires the ball over the bar. And I thought he'll be very disappointed with that finish, because he done everything right before that. Like absolutely everything he done right. And like people there in the chat, San Fran saying Ur was like fucking McGregor. Mate, I had flashes of Paul Meatstay with the ability and what he was picking out and the passes he was picking out, understanding how young he is and the level of opponent. But he really upgraded with midfield play. And I was like, look, there's a midfielder right there. We don't need to go Lennon Miller, who, you know, we've got players on our own ranks who we can bring in. Maybe so many people won't be saying, oh, the academy's a waste of time and we're not developing players, but like, you need to give these players a chance. And let's face it, as a support, we're all too quick to tear the pants off a player and give him criticism. And rightly so. Like Stephen Welsh, he developed Kyogo's origami shoulder. I'd say to a couple of the boys, he must carry his ego on that shoulder, because the shoulder met no contact. He actually get pushed by Doohan, who maybe called for the ball, and hurt his face off the attacker. And then he just heard Doohan maybe call again and pulled out completely. He tried to shield the ball, and the attacking player from Cork just danced round him, picked the ball up, stripped it away, and finished it very nicely. 2 minutes later, he was down holding that shoulder. And I'm like, clearly that damaged his ego, because nobody damaged his shoulder. And I'm so sick of Welsh, like, failing to materialise the goods. Like, he's got all the assets, like some other players there at Celtic as well, got all the assets, everything he needs to, like, he's been in about the first team as long as Scott Bain. He's been in and around the fringes, and he's learning from pros. I think he was there as a young player when Van Dijk and stuff like that were there. He's been there for so long. He's in with the foundations, basically, and he's learned, for the looks of it, he's learned absolutely nothing. Seriously, if Brendan can look at players like Lagerbielke and Naroki and want to ship them out instantly, well, he needs to turn that big analytical eye around on Stephen Welsh and be like, boom, out the door, my man. Because he is not, Paddy, I 100% agree. Never in a million years, never in 10 million years is he ever going to be a Celtic mainstay centre-back. Dane Murray, that's a completely different story. All the physical attributes, the ability to stay calm under pressure, and also the ability, right? Someone says to me, Ange Postecoglou says, you learn more from one defeat than you do 100 victories. And you learn more from one mistake than you do doing things right 1,000 times over. The mistake Dane Murray made in last year's Champions League campaign when he was brought on against West Ham, certainly he's come back in and he's let it affect him positively. He didn't go and lie down in the sideline and start saying he ripped his tight or he's hurted his shoulder or he's got a wrist sprain. But like, that's what it just reeked of when I seen Welsh. I was like, nobody even hurt your shoulder. What are you all about? It's always this same shoulder you go grabbing and look for the substitute and brought on. And perhaps if he didn't, we wouldn't have got to see young Donovan come back on and finish that header. Maybe we would have went to penalties and Paddy would have been like brown instead of red. He'd have been radioactive, my man. But yeah, look, there's lots of food for thought in that game. And as we're saying, as I've said as well, mate, look, you're quick enough to tear players apart and tear them down and look at them. That's what it is to be a Celtic fan. We're judgmental, we're hypercritical. We love to win, we're used to winning. And that's a winning mentality, by the way. See, when you're winning, it's a winning mentality. When you're not winning, it's toxic negativity. You're booing at half time and stuff. I've seen people criticising online, like, never let them say anything about us again. They've got fans pitch invading after a friendly. Try winning a friendly, Trips. You know, try winning one, even against a pub team, because he's got better for a pub team a couple of weeks ago, and he's firing slings and arrows at us. But yeah, mate, like, there's a lot of food for thought there, a lot to digest about it as well. But one thing certainly stuck in my throat and caused me indigestion as well as diarrhea was Welsh and Welsh's performance. And then how he was a shrinking violet, grabbed his shoulder and looked for the substitution. No, I'm not shite. I was just injured. I actually had a sore shoulder. That's why I couldn't shield the ball. Absolutely waffle, man. In fact, when he goes back to Virgin,
I think you're getting Groundhog Day vibes for Welsh at this point in the season. You know, it's like every season seems to be the same kind of idea, doesn't it? You know, Welsh is always there, and I think this time he's gone. I think that he might be going to Michelin, and I think on a permanent basis. And listen, it's going to benefit him because he's 26, 27. He's no longer a youngster or a prospect. It's time to just cut him loose and let him go.
He's a failure, bro. That's what he is.
It's certainly not going to happen at Celtic. So just touching on Lagerbielke and Big Rocky as well, obviously. Lagerbielke's out the door at Braga. We've took a loss on him considering the amount we paid on him, but you know he's got to go because he's simply not in the picture. So we get something back on him. Big Rocky's going to be away in a year's loan with the option to buy, so he's gone as well. There's also talk about CCV. Obviously, we know how fragile he can be, or how no fragile, but when it comes to injuries, he seems to be picking up a lot, especially major games for Celtic. When we really rely on him, he's been an absolute man mountain for us in defence. And I think that's an area we really have to look at and make sure we've got proper backup there, because, listen, there's no guarantees that Carter Vickers is going to be here before the transfer window shuts. So if that's the case, we certainly need another two in, one to replace him and one is a backup. We're just talking about the left-hand side there. But it looks like we've got Trusty, and I think Brendan is probably going to go with him because he's certainly a player that he brought in, and obviously you look at the money he spent on him as well. They've definitely got to give him another chance this season. But this is a part that we need to sort out. That's especially that position. Obviously, we've got AJ in the right, and we've got Tierney in the left, and possibly Inamura that could cover there or cover left centre back as well if he gets opportunity. But we'll certainly still get a good bit of equipment to go. I know we've brought in some bodies, but also Kuhn's out the door as well. He's going to be going to coma. I know it's not totally confirmed, but it is going to happen. So that right-hand side is really weaker. I know, obviously, Kuhn didn't have the greatest end to the season the last few months. You know, we get, to be honest with you, in the 2 years I was here, excuse me, with half a good season out of him.
Yeah.
So when you consider the money we're getting for him, it's actually a really good deal. And the fact that it's come out that he basically wanted away in January, you can see that now, because that is exactly when he fell off a cliff.
Yeah.
And that, to me, I don't know your opinion on this, but he's been stealing a wage off our club for January. If that's the case, if he's down in the tools, he should be absolutely ashamed of himself. And maybe that's the reason why he's not made it at big clubs. You know, he's moved on. I know I've been on a wee bit about defensive here, but let's touch on the Kuhn situation. Paddy, what's your thoughts on Nicholas Kuhn?
So I'm very much in the same frame of mind as Brendan. You know, that he made it clear he didn't want to be there, and as Brendan said the other day, when that happens, then you work as hard and as quickly as you can to facilitate a move for him. The last thing that we need is players who don't want to be there. You know, that's, you know, for me, the Bayern Munich game away from home, that was the last night we saw Kuhn playing really anywhere close to the level that he can play at. The only thing I would say, Andy, is, you know, despite the fact that he maybe didn't give us a full season, and you know he was very poor towards the end of the season, you still can't take away with the number of goals he scored and the number of goals he set up for other people. So that's a big chunk. That's a big chunk of goals and opportunities being created that's being taken out of your team. So somebody else is going to have to come in and take up that slack. You know, that's, you say what you like about him, but he did produce the goods. You know, when he did produce quite well over the course of the whole season, even though it didn't look like it towards the end. So like, somebody's going to have to come in and score those goals. Somebody's going to have to come in and lay on those chances for other people. I saw Mark Otilio there last night as well. Yeah, man, I don't know if any of the viewers saw him, but I saw him on the touchline as well. I saw him floating about signing autographs. So he's obviously back with the squad again. He didn't look an awful lot of difference to me, Andy. He looks as though maybe he's bulked up a wee bit, but nothing really major that I saw. But, you know, it was hard because he was sitting with his tracksuit top on, but he's floating about there as well. But, you know, they were in a no-win situation with him, Andy. You know, like it was a no-brainer. It certainly should have been a no-brainer. You know, at the end of the day, he told them they wanted to go, made that clear. And as Brendan said, it was exactly the same with Kyogo. You know, as Brendan says, once a player makes it known that he wants to leave the club, well, then the club do all they can to facilitate him with a move, and we try and get a good deal for both the player and the club. And, you know, when you look at the structure of the deal, you know, a guy that we paid $3 million for him, a guy that produced quite well over the 2 years he was there and was involved in the trophies that we won and was involved in the European run that we had. And then to ship him out because he's unhappy, ship him out for 16, 17 million. It's, you know, it's good business. It really is good business. The only thing about it, Andy, it worries me about the whole thing. It's not only just the Nicholas Kuhn situation. It's the entire recruitment transfer business. Like I've said it before and I'll say it again. I still maintain that this Brendan's contract situation has the potential to develop into an absolute circus that's going to just run on all season long. You know, this until this is resolved, I honestly don't think the board are going to shell out big money if he's not going to commit beyond the end of next season. I that's my view on it. I think that's why we've been so slow in the transfer market. I think they're waiting for Brendan to commit. And that's why I say, I mean, there's that the guy that the guy that they were looking for from Rapid Vienna that they signed to replace Kuhn. We were supposed to be looking for him, and he's going somewhere. And he's going to France now for 10 million, and I think it's actually 10 million euro. You know, so you know we're not prepared to spend. We're not prepared to spend even the bulk of the Kuhn money in a replacement. We're still piddling about with 3 million offers and 4 million offers when teams are telling us they want 7 and 8 million. You know, so I'm beginning to become concerned about this. Because that's what's going to happen. You know, again, I'm not sure. I didn't hear the pre-match interviews yesterday, but I saw Rory Hamilton doing them down on the pitch. But you know, once the football starts for real, Andy, you know, Brendan is going to be asked by that every time a microphone is shoved in his face after the game, before the game. He's going to be asked about this, and that's why I'm saying this has a potential to develop into a real distraction. Behind the scenes yet again, while this contract situation is unresolved. And as I say, that's my opinion. My view is that the board are hanging on. The board are saying, right, well, we're just going to sit tight here. We're looking across the city. There's plenty of players being signed, but you know, when you look at the players that the other side are signing, you know, they're not fighting off competition for too many players or too many clubs from those players. So I would just urge a bit of caution there. They're bringing in bodies. They're trying to get younger, and you can see exactly what they're doing. But whether they've got quality or not is another matter. And people are saying, "Oh, but they're getting their business done," and I get that 100%. But it's only my honest opinion, Andy. That's my view. I feel that Brendan is digging his heels in. He's not signing a contract at the minute. It's not on the agenda. And I just feel that the board are digging their heels in and saying, well, you know what, we're not prepared to give you £30 million to spend or £25 million to spend on players when you may very well walk away at the end of next season, and any new manager coming in is going to be left with £25 million worth of players that they didn't sign. You know, so this, for me, it's very worrying. It's starting to become really, really worrying because I just have the feeling that it has the potential to develop into just a complete sideshow and a complete circus going on behind the scenes. And that's just going to be, the media will just absolutely love that. They'll love that. They'll love that. They love bringing that subject up. They love speculating about it. They love talking about it. They'll love telling us that Brendan's no notion of staying. You know, so I think we need to do something about that before it gets much later, because I have a feeling that's what's affecting our transfer business.
Yep. Kaiser, just touching on what Paddy said, we'll get if you can give your opinion on Kuhn and then touch on Brendan. Has situation with his contract. Paddy had an absolutely fantastic point there. You know, are they going to invest in a man that they're not sure is going to be there? But one thing is sure is that they're not going to come out and confirm that it isn't signing a contract. That they're simply only going to come out and say that you'll only find out if he stays. That's the only thing they're going to say. Other than that, it's by actions that you can tell what the situation is going to be, because obviously this transfer window and then the January one coming up next as well tells a lot of stories there. So if Brendan is going to complete his 3 years and that's all, and no extend it at all, should we be looking at the management situation right now to make sure we're not left in the lurch? But firstly, your thoughts on Jim?
Yes, look, listen, Andy, mate, spot on what you're saying about Brendan as well. And I'll go on to that right after I mention about Kuhn. As I said before, and I'll say it again, he went from a leaf dancing on the wind to a house brick in a tumble dryer. And the fact that he down tools, he's not playing, he was dragging his feet. Well, it's clear to see now for the manager's comments and the smile in his face in that private jet as well. You know what I mean? I was like, just La Bamba, that bad boy. I am delighted that Kuhn is off. I'm delighted at the business we've done. I'm delighted at the money we got for him. Like, the guy was that poor in the second half of the season. I thought his wisdom teeth had grown back. I was like, somebody pinned him down and pulled more teeth out. The more teeth he loses, the better he gets. Because his form just dropped off a cliff. You know, it was like that game, mate. It's like the alligator and you need to pull the teeth out it. I was like, that's what Kuhn was like. But look, excellent business. And understand Brendan saying, like, his head was turned after the Bayern Munich game, January. Well, what club was turning his head back then? Because it wasn't Como, where he's rumoured to eventually end up going. And yes, I understand Kritzgarden ends up at Norwich, a £6.5 million release clause that we never knew about. Like, who is control of our business here? And then we're looking at the Rapid Vienna winger who was Kuhn's replacement. Sorry, Andy, back in, brother.
That's right. There's no way that nobody knew about that clause. Absolutely no chance.
That's madness in my mind.
I mean, that's one of the first things. If he has an agent working on his behalf, his agent is going to say to any interested parties, "Look, this is what it's going to take to shift this guy. He's got a clause here. Mm-hmm. They might be looking for 10 million, but you only have to hit the 6.5 million more." The other point I would make about Kritzgarden is it's very simple to me. You know, to be fair, if Norwich City is the height of this guy's ambition, well, we should be running a mile from him anyway. Mm-hmm. You know, if that's the height of his level of his ambition, and he's making all these noises about, you know, I've done really well with Bromby, it's time to move to the bigger league, it's time to take my career to another level, and then he signs for Norwich City. It tells me all you need to know about this guy, and I'm not in the least bit disappointed. If that's the height, if that's the height of his ambition, well, then let him jog on. We should be looking at somebody who's looking to play Champions League football, who's looking to win trophies, he's looking to win medals, and is looking to make a career for himself, not go to some journeyman club in England and just pile up the pounds.
Yeah, it reeks of the Sidney Van Hooijdonk deal. Yep. How he ended up at Norwich and how we absolutely dodged a bullet on that one as well. So I dare say, like, maybe we dodged a bullet on this one. There is a reason that he's been touted and his club want to get maximum value. Look, I understand Rapid Vienna as well. They've just watched us sign a player for them for 3.5 million and then sell him for 15 million. They've got no sell-on clause. They want a fair chunk in that deal as well. So they're going to kick and scream and stamp their feet and look like there's millions of potential suitors in there. And you get articles from Scottish mainstream media like Celtic embarrassed again. And look, they can hear what fans are saying out there. They can hear our opinion. It's out here. It's on podcasts. It's in live chats. It's out there. It's in there like swimwear, as they would say. So Scottish mainstream media, they're on it like a car bonnet. They're looking to destruct our club in any way, shape or form because the club that they support are signing journeymen and League One jobbers and cloggers and 36-year-old wafflers with, like, as I says, look, they've not managed to win a pre-season game, and they're trying to comment on our pre-season games. And as Paddy hit on as well, about Brendan Rodgers. It's the age-old game of tic-tac-toe, isn't it? It's what came first, the chicken or the egg? Who signs first? Who breaks first? Brendan's standing there screaming at the moon, if you buy me players, I'll sign a new contract. And the board's gone, if you sign a new contract, we'll buy you players. But that suits the board down to the ground, doesn't it? Big Peter Lawwell's in the house with nipple tassels on right now, like that. Oh, I'll buy you players if you sign a deal. It's a 10-year deal. You're getting half the wages. So Brendan needs to play his cards close to his chest. I understand that. He needs to maximise his value. One of the highest paid managers we've ever had right now. And he's obviously looking for more. If Brendan sees this title through to the end, that'll be 5 in a row. So Brendan is going to be looking at, well, I can extend that. I can sign myself into the annals of Celtic history. I can go beyond 9 in a row. If the board invest in me, I'll invest in you. Really, in my opinion, Brendan needs to make a leap of faith. If Brendan makes a leap of faith, signs a deal, even a 3-year deal, a 4-year deal, then he takes the full emphasis and all, the full microscope, the full power and willingness of the Celtic support focus right down on the board, and you end up with fans outside the stadium saying, Peter, spend the fucking money. Spend the money, Peter. That's what it focuses it in, rather than standing there and tic-tac-toeing about the situation. And like, if you buy me players, I will sign. If you sign me, we'll buy you players. I'm like, oh my God, man, we're going to go on like this for the entire season. And Paddy's 100% accurate. Every member of the media, every single mainstream media representative is going to be forcing the mic in Brendan's face and saying to him, how did you feel about the players that come in? Were any of the players your choices? Is there a new deal on the cards? Have you been offered a deal? It's going to be right out there in the wind. Let's not air the dirty laundry in public. I certainly hope Brendan Rodgers remembers what happened last time, and he allows the Celtic support to be that online magnanimous force that we are. But actually, Celtic fans are a force of nature. That's why you see bands like Kneecap and that tapping into the Celtic support, and definitely the online community. We're an absolute force of nature. All we need to do is direct the eye of that hurricane where it deserves to be, and that's within the Celtic boardroom, in my opinion. Brendan needs to make a leap of faith. He needs to sign a contract. He needs to go, or he needs to comment and go, look, I'm willing to stay for another 3, 4, 5 years. He needs to come out and say it. If not do it, he needs to come out and say it and go, look, I'm willing to be here. I'm going to sign this deal. I will sign that deal. And then it will force all the emphasis right back on the board. And the fans will be going, right, enough of the biscuit tin mentality, enough saving for a rainy day. It's time to dig deep in the pockets and back this man, because he's backing us. He's signing on. He's up for the cut. Or yours, in my opinion, spot on, Paddy, mate. And Andy, spot on.
I think obviously when it comes to Brendan, he did say when he came in he'd be here for the 3 years that he'd signed for. He's obviously got unfinished business that he wanted to sort out, so there was no guarantees that he was going to stay longer than that. I kind of, maybe last season I'm thinking to myself, I think there's a chance he could stay. Now I'm actually thinking to myself, I don't think it's going to happen. I don't. I think he's basically come back to right some wrongs in his head, and
which he has done on here.
So he is going to do what he said and finish his 3-year contract.
Yeah,
I really don't think now that he's going to. I'd be really surprised if he did stay. I've got to be honest. So I think we need to start thinking about the future now and trying to line somebody up. Obviously, behind the scenes, they'll have better ideas than we do. They're certainly not going to put any negativity out there. It's going to affect the team, or especially when the season's not even started yet. But I'm just kind of wary of that. So I'd like Celtic to really have their thinking caps on and what type of manager we would need to get in next to take over for Brendan if that is the case. Let's just touch on a couple of rumours. At Balikwisha, he's in again on the rumour mill. 25-year-old Antwerp winger. What is if that could be a goer? Somebody also mentioned in the comments as well, Shin Yamada. the striker, Japanese striker, on about 1.5 million. It looks as if that is on the cards. Looks as if that is going to happen, which is good news, I suppose. You know, we're asking for a striker. We'll wait and see what kind of quality he is there. Also, I don't know if I'm going to attempt this surname here. It's Etienne Kinkui, I think he is.
Yep.
He's a 23-year-old centre back we have. I think if he's probably around about 4.2, 4.3 million there, that could be a goer. And also, this man has been mentioned as well. Giuseppe Ambrosino, 21-year-old Italian international for Napoli. I think there's other sides interested. Calgary and Cremonese are also in the frame to sign him as well. So it remains to be seen whether he's going to be getting brought in the door. But there's certainly things going on behind the scenes. Is any kind of players excite you? Any kind of players there that you would be quite interested to get in the door? It looks as if Yamada is going to happen, actually.
Yeah, Yamada seems to have a good record in Japan, Andy. He seems to be a regular goal scorer. I think it's Kawasaki Frontals he plays for. So he seems to be quite sharp. Similar type player to Kyogo. Looks a very similar type build and stature to Kyogo. The one that excites me is the wee guy Ambrosini, the wee Italian guy. And the reason he excites me is he's a free kick specialist. I saw a couple of his free kicks and they were top drawer. You know, really, really good. And we haven't had a decent free kick taker for a number of years. Probably Naka was probably the last one we had. It was probably the last decent sort of regular free kick taker we had. So he looks quite good. But again, what we go back to, it's all related to the issue with Brendan. It's not up to Brendan to go to the board. It's up to the board to go to him with an offer. That's what they need to be doing. They need to be saying to him, right, Brendan, you're going in. If this was a player, if Brendan was a player, we could be looking at, say we had a player who's valued at, like Dyson Maida, we'll use Dyson Maida as an example. If Dyson Maida was in the situation that Brendan's in now, Dyson Maida is less than 6 months away from being able to talk to clubs in January for nothing. Absolutely nothing. They can agree a deal to sign him in July next year for nothing, and he can walk away for nothing. Brendan Rodgers is in the same caliber of a manager as Dyson Maida is as a player, and that's what we need to be doing. We should be protecting that asset, and we should be trying to get that asset tied down to at least another 3 or 4 year deal. As Kaiser says, if we win the league this year, that's 5. If Brendan was to sign another 3 year deal, that could take you up to 8. And Brendan's still only a young man at that stage. If you were hypothetically to get to 8, Brendan only needs to take another 2 year deal to do 10. You know what I mean? Even if he doesn't want to commit to 5 at this stage, so it's up to the club, and they're dragging their heels again. They need to get some kind of an offer put in front of this guy, and it's then and only then we will see what Brendan's intentions are. If they make him a better offer in terms of giving him an increase in his money or his wages or whatever, and give him whatever the contract entails, but we need to be putting an improved offer in front of Brendan to see if he's going to sign it. And then that's when you'll know. If he doesn't sign it, well, then he has no intentions of staying beyond next season. And that, because every day that ticks past, every week that ticks past, I know people are saying that it's still very early in the window, and they're right, it is still very early in the window. But every day that goes past, every week that goes past, you miss more opportunities to get players in and get deals done. So that's the onus is definitely on the club, and the players there that we've looked at, those guys that you named there, those two or three names that you give me, again, are these the kind of players, Andy, that are going to make a difference for us in the Champions League next year? I'm not so sure. Again, we talked about, the type of player that we needed. We needed proven ability, not prospects. To me, those guys all would tick the box of being a prospect. Fit the model that we work to at the minute. You bring these young guys in, you sign them for 3 or 4 million, you develop them over a couple of years, and you sell them for 20 million down the line. That's the caliber that they fill in. What I think we're lacking severely at the minute is a couple of players of the Arne Engels type. That players that are going to cost a bit of money. You know what I mean? And because they're going to be top quality players, and that's what we need to address. We need to address that centre back situation, and it needs to be addressed pronto. And again, we haven't seen enough of Callum Osmond, obviously, but I still maintain that we need to find a proven goal scorer out of somewhere. We cannot start the season relying on Adam Ida and 1 week you've asked him Maida to play in the wing, and then the next week you're going to ask him to play through the middle. That you can't sustain that for a full season. We need to be going out there and getting, if it costs another 6 million, 8 million, whatever, we need to be going out there and bringing in a proven goal scorer. Somebody who will, as I said to Kaiser before, who will plank himself on the 6-yard line and finish off those chances that are getting fizzed across the box. Johnny Kenny's not up to it, guys. It's as simple as that. I saw enough of him yesterday. The guy just doesn't have it. He may run about plenty and he may look nippy and all that there, and it's lovely for him being Irish and all that there, but the guy's not good enough. It's as simple as that. It's a Shamrock Rovers player in a Celtic shirt. That's what it is. So we cannot go into the season looking at, again, and I mean, even that's, you touched on Cameron Carter-Vickers, Andy. Like, what's the story with him? I mean, are we going to rely again on Cameron Carter-Vickers to be our number one go-to guy at the back when the guy might miss 20 matches or 25 matches next season?
It's got to be Stephen Welsh.
That's crazy. That's crazy, Andy. It's kamikaze. It's kamikaze planning. You know what I mean? So again, like everything else, you said it earlier about the succession plan, and that's exactly what we should be doing. Even if Brendan is happy enough to sign another deal, we should be looking out there to see what's out there. We should be trying to identify other managers who might be an option for us 3-4 years down the line. That's what we should be doing. Any club who has any sort of succession plan, that's what you should be doing. And it's the same with your players as well. So we've known for months. Kyogo left in January. That was your main striker, and we've not replaced him. So the onus is very much on them to do something, as I said last week, right up the middle of the team, the spine of the team, centre half, centre mid, centre forward. And we obviously then still need to replace Kuhn in the wide area as well. And again, there's still a massive question mark for me hanging over Jota. I'll reserve judgment on Jota how he recovers till I see him back playing again. That injury that he sustained might lead him to he might never be the same player. You know what I mean? So there's too many doubts and and worries over the whole thing. But as I say, the first thing the club need to do, they need to be getting an offer put in front of Brendan Rodgers and say to him, right, here we are, Brendan. There's let's see the colour of your money now. Are you interested in staying on? There's another 5-year deal. There's another 4-year deal, which would take us to 8 or 9 titles in a row. So that's what needs to happen, Andy. It's as simple as that. Because if it doesn't happen, as Kaiser said, this will develop into an absolute sideshow, and it'll be a constant circus. And we don't need that. We will not need that. We're going to be under enough pressure this season, and that's just going to be the focus of everybody's attention. Brendan will be asked about that at every press conference before the match. He'll be asked it again after the game. Any update in the content? Have they spoke to you? Have you spoke to them? And Brendan will constantly be batting that way, saying, "Look, I'm here to talk about the game." And when he doesn't answer the question he got, then that creates a vacuum where we start to think, well, he doesn't want to talk about it because he doesn't want to stay. You know what I mean? So they need to get that sort of situation sorted and sort it quickly.
I think Paddy made a great point on Jota there, that they've been talking maybe bringing in a winger in that position to cover him on the loan. With obviously the idea that Jota is going to be back maybe January time, December, but he might come back, but he's got to get back to his ultimate kind of position. And there's no guarantees, as you said, with that injury, he might not be the same player.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's going to happen with obviously loan signings and stuff like that. We I think we just need to wait and see how he recovers for this injury. He could come back and just not be the same player at all. Or he could come back even better. I mean, I spoke about this before when Larson obviously had injuries and that, and came back actually better than he was before. When he had a pin in his leg and he broke jaw as well, didn't he?
Yeah.
Kaiser, what's your thoughts on the kind of signings that have been reported so far? I know the window's still got a long way to go before it's shut, and there will be other players coming in, but overall to this point, are you happy with it? Looks as if this is a goer. Yamada, are you happy enough with that? And obviously the big centre back here and the striker, young Italian. What's your thoughts on these players?
Yeah, look, I think once again, look, Paddy, mate, you speak a lot of sense. I seen Hoopy Tiberius Hound saying Kaiser looks baked. Actually, bro, Paddy looks baked. he was baked by the sun. Kaiser's no baked at all. Kaiser doesn't do any of that stuff. And this is Kaiser's interior swimming pool. That's what you get when you've got a council house in Ibrox. You get a whirlpool hot tub and an interior swimming pool for doing laps. Of course, it's a cyber background, Legends. I made that with a bit of AI. For me, look, 110%, right? Look, Brendan takes us to the end of this season. Say we win the league this season, that's 5. Then it starts flashing in my mind those banners of you exchanged legend for mediocrity. I don't see Brendan ever doing that again. That's why I'm saying with confidence, I see Brendan Rodgers absolutely wanting a bronze statue of his big shiny face and teeth on the Celtic way. He wants to be that manager that does the 10. He wants that. He dreams of it. He desires it. He would just never say it. So I can see Brendan staying on, even if other people can't. Johnny Kenny is not the answer, and I'm glad Paddy says it, because he's the man who needs to walk the plank in the ferry over for Ireland for not supporting another Irish boy. No, Irish eyes are smiling, and Paddy should always be smiling when he mentions that name. But he's the guy who said it. That's a Shamrock Rovers player in the guise of a Celtic player. The players that were mentioned with there, look, Shin Yamada, I love his name. As I said before the stream when we were in the green room, Yamada, it sounds like an Italian insult talking about your mother. Hey, Yamada. And there's Shin Yamada, and then there's another player who's Fuk Yamada. he's the guy we should be going with, Fuk Yamada. And look, what was the other guy's name, mate? The big centre back. You pronounced it ever so well, Andy. I'm going to let you do it again, mate.
It's Etienne Kinkui.
Yeah, Kinkui. Yeah, I'm all for that as well, mate. And Ambasini as well. I believe his name is Nectar of the Gods. I've seen his free kicks. Absolutely fantastic, by the way. And we do need that.
6'4". I think Kinkui's 6'4".
6'4". Is that with the afro or with the afro off, Andy?
Yeah, I'm not sure if they've added on those extra couple inches. I know some guys like to add on a few inches now and again, and
yeah. I never do that, Andy. Like you've seen 28 years later, Kaiser was actually the stunt double for the guy charging on the train. Anybody that's not seen that, that's Kaiser. 28 inches later, they now call me. Look, I'm excited about the signings, right? And it is very, very early in the window. At least the Ambrosini one, right? For him, for a developmental player on loan, and the idea of a winger coming in on loan as well. I know they've said that basically right now, look, Jota's out on the grass. He's like fighting his way back to fitness. And I think January is like that's a reasonable target for him to be back in January, given like he needs to recapture form, recapture your ability never goes. Like a heavyweight boxer, the last thing that ever goes for a heavyweight boxer is his punch. The legs go, the mind go, the ring craft goes, but the punch always remains. So Jota's always going to have that quality. He's always going to have 20-inch forehead. That's a bad boy. Here, listen, you can advertise on this forehead for the right fee. Andy's trying to set it up so you can subscribe to the channel. Just for like $16.99 a month, you can have your name on Kaiser's 5 feet. But for me, like mentioning these prospects and loans, they're more of the caliber of what I would be expecting. But the players that have come in as well, I said it before, Andy, I sent you a note of like 16 players, right, who I seen leaving the club. That included Scott Bain, and also I had Rio Hitati and Daisen Maeda on there. I think Maeda is basically sounded out in an interview that I seen when he was back in Japan, saying he wants to be Celtic's main striker. He wants to play centre forward. He doesn't want to be out in the wing. So another winger coming in, and Inamura being out there, and Kieran Tierney being out there bombing down the wing. That makes a lot of sense for Maeda to move central and stay central. And then what are we really looking at bringing in? For me, I love the physicality of Adam Maeda. I think he's got all the assets there. He's a big Trojan horse. I just feel he lacks just that one thing. He lacks that mentality of a big striker. Where is he going to learn that? Like, I seen him commenting on TV, talking about how he got 20 goals last season and how that was fantastic. Well, Griffith got 40 goals in the season. Where are you on that? Where are you on that bar, Adam? Like, you need to start judging yourself a bit more harshly. You need to start demanding more of yourself If you want to be the top man, you need to walk the walk and talk the talk. You need to put yourself out there and you need to go for it, in my opinion.
What I would say, to just back up Ida a wee bit there, and by the way, I think he certainly has to improve, is that, you know, when you look at his starting, the amount of starts he's had in the team, goals compared to appearances overall, I think it's pretty no bad. You can look at Griffiths at the time when he scored 40 goals. He played just about every game, you know, started just about every game. So I get where you're coming from. I think he does have to kind of judge his style a wee bit more harshly and make his targets maybe a wee bit more. I think you get the impression for you as well when he's interviewed, he's got that kind of that lethargy kind of talk. It would almost put you to sleep with his interviews, you know. I'd like to see him a wee bit more kind of upbeat, and it's just the way he is, you know. But you get that impression, it makes you take that impression from him on the park as well. That kind of waxy days ago at times as well, and as if he's not quite sharp enough.
Look, mate, for me, when it comes to Adam or Big Ida, right, or Edith, as some of the chat calls him, you're playing for one of the biggest clubs in the entire world. Wherever you go, you will see a Celtic top, from the depths of the Sahara Desert to Dubai to Florida. Wherever you go, you will be recognised. There's Celtic fans there. Start acting like it, big man. You know, give yourself the mentality that you deserve. You're no longer playing at a championship side. And I don't care what people down south would say about Celtic in the league we play in. The fact of the matter is, you play in the Champions League, you're on the greatest stage, and you are you're meant to be the main man, especially after Kyogo left. You're meant to be the main man. With Yamada, I've seen people mentioning Yamada's scoring record as well. I believe he had 120 appearances and scored 38 goals. But when we signed Daisen Maeda, he had something like 168 appearances and scored 55 goals. And look at Maeda now. Look at him fly. Look at the quality we've managed to find in Japan. I think some of the players are highly technical, highly skilled, loads buckets of quality. So, I shared a free kick in the group chat with the lads for Ambrosini, and it was absolutely top draw. And I'm like, we haven't had that. We haven't had that sort of threat from free kicks since Nakamura. I think Griffith, to mention him again.
Nygren's a free kick specialist. Well, possibly if we do get him, that's two in the team. Paddy, I just want to touch on what Penelope Pitstop said to you about Milwaukee. Do you think that's a viable option for us to consider him?
Do you know what, Andy? He was a player when he was at Aberdeen. I was disappointed that we allowed him to get out of Scotland. You know, I really was. I thought he would have been worth a punt at that time. You know, and it just shows you, if Aberdeen were able to get $6 million for him at that stage, playing on their stage, you know, there's no reason why we couldn't develop him into an even better player. And with the exposure you get in the top division in Europe, and winning trophies with Celtic, there's no reason why we still couldn't bring him in, sell him on for a few pounds as well. The thing that I liked about Majowski was, you know, sometimes these guys coming from different countries, it just doesn't work for them in Scotland, and they don't. But that guy Majowski, we all saw what he could do. Everybody saw, you know, exactly what Chilpill's saying. It's maybe not worked out for him in that move, but you know, we saw exactly what he was capable of against Aberdeen. He was a top class finisher. He scored goals. He scored goals for Aberdeen against everybody, Celtic and Rangers included, on more than one occasion. He looked a really good sharp player. He looked a really good finisher. He tormented us a few times, and I was very, very disappointed that we weren't more in the running for him at the time. You know, I would have been quite happy to sign Majowski at that stage instead of Aramida. I get why we did it, because he had a really good second half of the season. That when he came in on loan, scored a lot of goals and all the rest of it. But you know, again, as I said earlier, about your succession planning, you should always be looking to bring fresh players in. You know, to just even if nothing else, to keep the other players on their toes and give them a challenge for position. Like as Kaiser said, you know, if Big Adamida's looking around, he's looking around. Who's he got as competition for places? You know, we want the like of Aramida to be in the team, knowing that, listen, big man, you need to score. You need to score in this next game. You need to score in these next couple of games, or there's somebody else going to take your shirt. At the minute, there isn't anybody. You know, so that's what I'm saying. We need to be bringing players in, not only to improve the squad, but to give the other players a bit of a fight for their job and a fight for the jersey. You know, so Majowski definitely, if he was available, if he was available, I would definitely be interested in signing him. But I'm not sure if he would be. I'm not sure if he's available.
Yeah. But yourself, Kaiser, your thoughts on Miovski?
Look, spot on, legends, right? Miovski, tried and tested at Scottish level, scored goals against everyone. Absolutely tore the pants of our best defender, Cameron Carter-Vickers. He absolutely tore the scants of him, running through, tore us apart. I was like, this guy's got ability, he's got talent. Has he done it since he moved? No, he hasn't actually. When he moved away, he's kind of felt the obscurity. But there's a lot to say for disappointment of not getting the move that he had on the cards. And I understand, right, Brendan stuck his foot in the ground. He dug on his big high heels and he demanded Adam Ida. If Celtic would have moved faster, we would have paid $5 million for Ida. And at the end of that season, we would have all certainly been saying he's worth about $9.5, $10 million. Even right now, I think he's maintained his value with 20 goals for us last season. I think he's maintained that $9.5 million if we were looking to move him on. Look, we sold Big O for $5 million, and the club he went to are knocking back bids of $10 million for him now. Could we not have sent O out on loan and be bringing him back and selling him for $10 million right now, rather than snatching at the $5 million and just taking it? For me, right, Miovski's a viable option. He's a different caliber of player to Ida. When I look at Big Ida, I'm like, you've got all the physical attributes, everything you need to be like a big Drogba. You've got this skill, you've got control, ability, strength. Start putting it about a bit, big man. Stop looking at 20 goals a season and thinking that's good enough. If you're getting 30 starts, I expect 30 goals from you. I expect more than 30 goals. I expect 2 goals a game. The plethora of chances you're going to be offered at Celtic, I expect more. I expect a big man like him to be rattling goals in with the head as well. I've not seen him score a single header. Let someone in chat, anyone in the panel, correct me. I've never seen Adam Ida score a header. It's a rhyme for a reason, big man. If you're looking for something in your game to develop, start running and getting your head on the end of that ball. You know, start challenging in the penalty area for all these crosses that come in. All these corners.
He scored an absolute belter with his head against Motherwell at Fir Park. Do you remember the game we away at Fir Park? He got us back into the game and he scored a brilliant header that day. But as you say, Kaiser, for a big guy of his size and his physique, that guy, look at John Hartson. Big John Hartson bullied defenders and he bullied goalkeepers and all he did was bully them with his physique. And Big John planked himself on that spot between the penalty spot and the 6-yard line and just finished off the balls that were coming in from both sides. Mm-hmm. And that's what Adam Ida needs to do. For me, he does. I've said it before. He doesn't go in where it hurts something enough. Too often for me, he's standing on his heels. He's watching the play, and then it's too late. He doesn't make his move. He really needs to take a leaf out of, I don't know, the likes of Kyogo. Do you know what I mean? That Kyogo was so sharp and so nippy in front of goal, and Kyogo made that run across the front post, and that's what you have to do. You've got to make that run, especially with the amount of balls that Alistair Johnson drives over from the right-hand side, and you've got Dyson Maida and, and Nicholas Kuhn driving over from the left-hand side. It's imperative that you have somebody on the end of that. And just for me, Adam Ida just doesn't go in. He just doesn't go in where he's, as somebody used to say, you need to go in where the feet are flying, and that's exactly what he needs to do. Yeah, you might get a bang in the face, you might get a knock, but that's what you need to do to score goals. I've said it many, many times. Charlie Nicholas, Frank McGarvey, George McCluskey, Henrik Larsson, Tommy Johnson, the list goes on. You simply cannot play up front for Celtic and not be a goal scorer. It doesn't work. We are always, and we've always had good goal scorers. We've always had top class number 9s. Gary Hooper, Lee Griffiths, Anthony Stokes. The list is endless. You cannot be a Celtic striker and not score goals because you won't have a very long career if you do.
Mm-hmm. Look, I see that comment there for Big John Shirley as well. Look, it's not like we're picking on Ida because we don't believe in him. It's the opposite. It's because we do believe in him. Yeah. It's because he's got all the key attributes to actually be a success. Paddy's spot on. Like, sometimes you need to throw your face in where feet are flying. Yeah. It's not like he's a catalogue model or anything like that anyway. You know what I mean? Don't be afraid to get an Umbro Supermax to the face or a Nike boot to the face. You'll win as a penalty if you get one to the face because he's 6 foot odds, but Don't be feared to get in there, you know what I mean? Rough it up. Like John Hartson, Kenny Dalglish, he was famous for sticking the arse out and getting the arse in there and bullying players and barging them out the way, using your physicality. That's what he needs to do. He needs to use all these assets. He needs to bring everything he's got to the table. And he definitely needs to be sharper. He needs to stop standing back and admiring the picture and be involved. He needs to be in the picture. And that's where he's not right now. Not played a pre-season a game yet. Not even when we played Cork and Ireland, given he's an Irish international. Johnny Kenny was on there. Other young players. You need to get yourself in the picture, mate. You need to put yourself in the frame. If you're coming in here and watching this and...
Just touching on Ida, obviously, with this Cork City game. A man who's from Cork, as you said, Irish international, went to the civic reception with Brendan Rodgers and Callum McGregor, and then you'd think they even gave him a second half, just brought him on, you know.
Only 10 minutes. You know, I know he's probably not fit, and Brendan did say they were worried about taking a risk, but you know, man, they could have sent him on with 5 minutes to go. Yep. You know, there was hundreds and hundreds of kids there down by the front. They're just dying to see Liam Scales. They're dying to see Adam Ida. They're wanting to see the Irish boys. You know, a lot of these young adults, you know, remember watching Adam Ida playing for Constitution. They remember watching Liam Scales playing for Shamrock Rovers. You know, they wanted to see these young guys in a Celtic shirt, and I was just really, really disappointed. Given them that they were there with the squad anyway, you know, put them on the bench and throw them on for 5 minutes. What's the worst that can happen? You know what I mean? It's a friendly. You know, just let the fans see them in a Celtic shirt playing in Park O'Keefe. You know what I mean? So it was very disappointing. But I suppose Brendan did say a couple of weeks ago that every player has an individual training plan. They're trying to get every player, because not every player is either strong or weak in the same area. So they've developed an individual training plan for each player, and I suppose they are sticking to that. It's all this sports science and stuff, you know, and all the rest of it. So they've all got it all mapped out for them. But I just thought, given the fact that, you know, they didn't even bring them onto the pitch and to give an introduction, even if they didn't play, they could have brought them on. You know what I mean? Why couldn't they have Adam Ida and Liam Scales bringing the cup out onto the centre circle? You know what I mean? Yeah. It was just, I just thought it was poor, to be honest. But listen, it is what it is.
I agree with this comment here. I think Kenny's movement is far better than, obviously, different players, but I find Ida, his positional sense at times really lets him down, and he is sometimes half asleep when it comes to, as Tyser said, he's watching it, and he's not willing to take part in it. You know, he's almost
not switched on.
His attention span and his forward thinking about where the ball's going to end up escapes him at times. So I think that is a bit concerning, and obviously a good comment there as well. I just want to bring up the games that are remaining this season, because we're almost finished here. We've played Queen's Park, played Cork City. This Amadora game, is that behind closed doors? I think it is.
It's behind closed doors.
So whether we're going to actually see any footage of that, I don't know if we'll be catching.
Yeah, I actually heard the commentary team on Celtic TV speaking about, like, they're going to receive that one, I'm sure, for the Portuguese network that have got the game. So I believe we're going to get a feed. Basically all of them we're going to get to see, my man, hopefully.
I don't think there's going to be any major first team players taking part in that one either. I don't think we're going to see any kind of major first team action, as in players coming back until the Sporting game. July 16th. Then we've got Newcastle at Celtic Park on the 19th. And then we've got the Como competition over there. We've got Ajax on the 24th. And then we've got the third place playoff on the 26th. And then let me take that comment away if I can. 2 seconds, guys, sorry. And actually, if we do make a cup final, that's going to be in the 27th. So I think overall, we'll probably not see any real action when it comes to our regular first team players until that Sporting game. So actually, when you look at it, it's quite a busy schedule we've got there before we even get into the season, and the Champions League qualifier coming up as well. So plenty of games coming up to look forward to. Paddy, when are you back at Celtic Park? Are you?
We'll be going over. We're going over for the Newcastle game on Saturday the 19th. We'll be going over for that one.
Aye. What about yourself, Kaiser? You be watching it on the box?
No, I'm going to go to the Newcastle game as well. Tickets are readily available, you know what I mean? But yeah, definitely. Maybe meet up with Paddy. I'll show him what a bottle of Buckfast tastes like. You can get, like, I usually drink May State, mate, but before I get there, so I buy two. I get one for half time in the inside pocket as well. So, like, by that point, Kaiser's dancing in the stands.
Aye. You ever tried that stuff, the Jamaican stuff, Kaiser?
Oh, aye, the Magnums. Aye, that's in the pads pockets, my man. That's 2 bottles of Magnum, 2 bottles of Sydney Divine. That's how Kaiser rolls.
At the weekend, I cleared out in my garage. I've got a bar where I do the podcast for on a Friday, and it's been an absolute mess recently. But we cleaned it up a wee bit, and I'm getting rid of some chairs that were in there. And I found a couple of bottles, empty bottles of that Magnum, and I was like, I remember that night. it was a bit mental. It's like a wee bottle,
my man.
It's strong. So
I seen it there in the media as well. They says that I think it was a Scottish team. I don't know if it was St Mirren or something, and they had drinks available at the stadium. So a chance of bringing it back. And well, I don't care if fans are boycotting the stadium. I'm going to take the kids. I'm going to take my grandfather. Grandfather's actually a Dunfermline fan, right? It's my missus' grandfather, and he's never been to Paradise. And I keep saying to him, look, I'm going to take you and I'm going to show you what a big team mentality and a big stadium's like. Grandad, he's 83 years old. So I'm going to take Grandad and I'm going to take my kids as well. So, like, what is it? £12 for children and concessions and £25 for an adult. Yeah. Look, definitely legends. Look, I don't care. Look, you put a Celtic badge on a dog shit and I'll buy it. I'm just that kind of Celtic fan. I absolutely love it. And the fact that I can't get a season book right now, and I need to like Rango and bid and search and hunt for tickets. My old man's got the season book that we usually share. Look, I'm going to be there. Definitely. I'm a mug. I'm 100% a mug. 100%. Look, can you know, look, big forehead and big ears, man. I'm a sippy cup, my man. Look, the fringe. I'm loving it.
I won't be at. I get away in the 12th for 2 weeks on my way to Rhodes for 2 weeks, so I'll be lying in the sun when that game's on. Hopefully, be able to catch it over there. Whether I'm going to be on or not, I don't know. It really depends. I'll take all my stuff ways and see how I go on. But anyway, that's us, guys. So we will be back on Friday.
Jerry's back.
Jerry's going to be back. Your Scotty is his daughter's there visiting him, so he's spending some good quality time with her. So Scotty will be
family first, legends.
Aye, absolutely. So just a big thank you to everybody for watching us. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and help us grow and get us really back to get to 2,000 subs if possible. We're not too far off it. I think we're over.
And listen as well, legends, right? You've heard this chat, you've heard this talk, there's people in the live comments, but see people catch up and come back in and watch the video. Make sure you drop into the comments below the video and get your points in. Any food for thought, whatever you have got to say, agree, disagree. Kaiser's not got a 4-head or a 5-head, it's actually a 6-head. Like, whatever, get it in the chat, get us chatting in there. It all helps combat that YouTube algorithm, as well as the likes and the subscribes. It's the comments as well that really drive it. Help push the pod higher, help push us out to more Celtic fans. We want to get as many opinions in here as possible. Like we always say, podcasts are nothing without people watching and listening. Podcasts are nothing without you. So you'll help us grow, you'll help us get out to more people. Look, I'd like to think it's the best podcast around. Like, wait till Kaiser starts getting the body butter out and the breakdancing.
Body butter. Right, again, thanks to everybody. Paddy, thank you. Kaiser, thank you very much, and we will see you all.
Hail.
All right, guys, have a good night. Hail, everybody.
One hoops.
Someday you will find